Hello students, in your first class you are going to learn about human digestive system and absorption. So we all eat food. If you do not take breakfast in the morning, how do you feel by noon? Yes, we feel exhausted. Sometimes at the morning prayer we may nauseate because we lack energy. Without food we lack energy. The food we eat provides energy and organic substances for growth and for replacement of worn and damaged tissues. And it also regulates and coordinates the various activities that take place in our body. The components of our food are carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, vitamins, minerals, fiber, and water. We obtain food from plants and animal resources. The food we eat are macromolecules and cannot directly enter into our cells. So these have to be broken into smaller micromolecules in absorbable forms, for which we need a digestive system. Plants, however, are autotrophs and they synthesize their own food. Hence, they do not require a digestive system. The primary function of the digestive system in the animals is to bring the nutrients, water, and electrolytes from the external environment into every cell in the body through circulatory system. Without digestive system, we cannot get the energy from the food we eat, because whatever we eat, our digestive system separates it into its basic forms, and through blood, that means through our circulatory system, it sends to each and every cell of our body. For example, every cell needs glucose to make ATPs, which we call as the currency of the cell. So from where we get glucose? By all the carbohydrates and the starch we eat, we get that glucose. So in that the cell survives. Yes. So the ultimately why we need digestive system is because we need energy. So the body cells need energy to run cell processes. So a cell has to be multiplied. A cell must undergo cell cycle, mitosis and meiosis. And if there is any damages in the cell organelles, the cell has to rectify. So the cell has various functions. The cell together forms the organs, tissues, skin. So they all have to perform particular functions. So for that they need energy. Animals obtain chemical energy from food. Energy is derived from breaking chemical bonds. The food energy is measured in units called calories. Yes. So whatever we eat in excess, it gets stored beneath the skin as fat. So okay. So the number of calories we eat must be accounted, or else it leads to obesity. Next one is lipids. These lipids are fats, oil, and waxes. So lipids are energy dense, containing 9 calories per gram. Lipids are used for storing energy making cell membranes, and synthesizing steroid hormones. So many lipids are made up of fatty acids and glycerins. So ultimately we cannot avoid all the fats, or we cannot avoid all the oil items, because our body needs fats, oil and waxes. For example, if our body does not have any oil, means what will happen? Our skin will become very dry. So when you contract or relax your hands, you may feel itchy. It leads to dry skin. So likewise, if our body does not have any fat, means so we will be looking very thin by nature, and also our body will not have any stored energy. So the lipids are also very important. So now we are seeing one by one, why does our body needs a digestive system. As I said earlier, our body needs a digestive system because we need energy. So such type of energy we get mainly from carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are sugars and starch that can human digest. Fiber is indigestible carbohydrates such as cellulose and inulin. Glucose is needed by all body cells as energy. Nerve cell must have glucose to operate. So ultimately all the carbohydrates and starch and fibers we eat are converted into glucose. So this glucose by the process of glycolysis is converted into ATP inside our cells mitochondria. So we obtain 50% of energy from carbohydrates. Generally these carbohydrates are sugar and starch, and these are the major source of cellular fuel which provides energy. Now we will see about proteins. So these proteins we get from our food, and these proteins provides 50% of our body's energy requirements. So we have to eat 65 to 75 gram of proteins per day. So these amino acids from digested proteins are used by cells to build all the proteins that our body needs. Human needs a balance of the 20 amino acids which can be obtained from animal proteins or by blending plant sources. So generally egg, meat, milk, fish, spinach, dal are very rich in proteins. So these proteins are the building blocks of our body. So when these proteins are get ingested into our body will break down these proteins into amino acids. So there are 20 amino acids. Some are essential and some are non-essential. So the essential amino acids have to get into our system only through food. So protein rich foods are very important, or else it may lead to malnutrition. So in the above picture you can see the carbohydrates, proteins and lipids are the macromolecules because they contribute about 95% of energy and our body needs. For example, carbohydrates like starch are broken down into glucose by our body, which helps in making ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And proteins which we have through food are broken down into amino acids, and these amino acids are used to make our own enzymes and other body proteins. And lipids, we take lipids in the form of fats, waxes, oils and steroids, and these are broken down into fatty acid chains and glycerin, which are used for cellular energy. Next one is minerals. So these minerals we need in a much smaller amount, but also they are very essential and they play a very important role in the physiological activities of our body. For example, minerals like sodium, potassium, zinc, iron, calcium, copper and selenium are among the minerals that humans need. Most minerals can be found in whole grains like wheat, rice, fruits, vegetables, nuts and meat. But highly processed packaged food can be deficient of these minerals. So avoid eating packaged foods or junk foods. So now what I am going to say is very important. Listen carefully, students. Many research findings have proven that usage of chemical preservatives and artificial enhancers lead to highly harmful effects. It includes heart ailments, hypertension, infertility, gastrointestinal disorders, early puberty in girls, weakening of bones, damage in organs like kidney and liver. So avoid eating junk food. Remember this, east or west, home preparation is the best. So we will see what are all the major minerals we need and their roles. So if you want to look into any picture, means you can kindly pause it and you can go through thoroughly. So we need iron. It is an important source of mineral. It is used to make hemoglobin and myoglobin. So we know hemoglobin are the carrier of oxygen. Through which natural resources we can get iron, red meat, egg, nuts, whole grains and leafy greens. Next, calcium. Yes, calcium we need for bone and tooth formation, muscle and nerve function. So where can we get? Through the natural resources like dairy products, leafy greens and dry beans. So next we need zinc. So they are the component of certain enzymes and they are required for growth. The natural resources are meat, whole grains, nuts and legumes. So like this we need many major minerals and they play a very important role. Next we will see about the vitamins. So these vitamins or function as an enzymes and they have a particular role in our body. So without that role cannot be function. For example, take vitamin A. It is a fat soluble vitamin. So what's its role? It used to make visual pigments. So it is good for the eye, epithelial tissue, for skin and for normal growth. So the natural resources are orange and yellow fruits. So that's why they ask you to eat carrot. They say it's good for eyes because it has vitamin A. And vegetables, egg yolk and dairy products. So generally whatever vegetables that are bright in color is good for eye. Then vitamin B. It is used in cellular respiration to metabolize sugars and other carbon compounds. So vitamin B complex helps in carrying the glucose into the cell and for the production of ATPs. So like that, many vitamins are there and their roles are very important, and we must know the natural resources where we can find that. So kindly go forward, pause it, and go through the picture. So next one is antioxidants. So generally the antioxidants are in colorful food. Yes. So these antioxidants are released by such as vitamin C and E and many plant pigments combine with free radicals and reduce their effects, which slows cell aging. Generally, growing children require more amount of protein for their growth and development. Protein deficiency may lead to protein energy malnutrition. So this malnutrition is a very serious problem in developing countries such as India, which may lead to marasmus and kwashiorkor. So the symptoms are dry skin, hot belly, edema in the legs and face, stunted growth, changes in hair color, weakness and irritability. So we have seen what is the importance of energy, how the foods are separated into carbohydrates, proteins, and what are the uses of it. Now we will see in detail about the digestive system. So in the small animals there is a different kind of digestive system called as two-way digestive system. Simple animals have a single digestive pouch with a single opening. Food enters through the opening and waste leaves through the same opening. These organisms must finish digesting before eating again. So they don't have separate pots for feeding and also for excreting. So they feed and they excrete through the same pot. So they cannot store the food, digest it and excrete. So before feeding anything they have to clear their digestive system by excreting it. So this is called as two-way digestive system. So it is seen in most of the lower forms of organism. And there is one-way digestion. So more complex animals have one-way digestion. Food enters through one opening and waste leaves from another. So animals with one-way systems can eat anytime, which is an advantage. For example, all the mammals and all the animals we know, even ourselves, we have one-way digestion. So they take up the food through the mouth, and after digesting it, they can able to excrete it. For that, so in between that alimentary canal or the digestive system will be there. So each part will be having separate functions. So they take in food through mouth and it passes through the various organs, and in the intestine the energy is absorbed and the waste materials is excreted through the anus. So this type of digestion is called as one-way digestion. Okay. So in human also it is of one-way digestion. So the process of digestion in human involves intake of the food, which is called as ingestion. Yes, now we are seeing about the human digestive system. You can look in the picture. So what are all the parts involved? You can pause the picture, pause the video, and you can go through the picture in a detailed way. Okay. So the process of digestion involves intake of food, which is called as ingestion, and breakdown of food into micromolecules, which is called as digestion, and absorption of these molecules into the bloodstream, it is called as absorption. The absorbed substances become components of cells, it is called as assimilation, and elimination of the undigested substances, this is called as egestion. So digestive system includes the alimentary canal and also associative digestive glands. Now we will see, so what you are looking at in the picture is the entire alimentary canal. So now I will say about the structure of the alimentary canal. The alimentary canal is a continuous muscular digestive tract that begins with an anterior opening, which is the mouth, and opens out posteriorly through the anus. So the alimentary canal consists of mouth, buccal cavity, pharynx, which is also known as food pipe, esophagus, stomach, intestine, rectum, and anus. The mouth is considered with the reception of food and leads to the buccal cavity or the oral cavity. So in humans, mechanical digestion takes place in the mouth. So the human incisors and canines are adapted for tearing food, while molars are adapted for grinding food. So the saliva, which contains enzymes, mixes with the food, and that enzymes helps in the digestion of the starch. So the digestion of starch starts in the mouth itself. The mechanical digestion is initiated in the buccal cavity by chewing with the help of that heat and tongue. Chemical digestion through salivary enzymes secreted by the salivary glands. Next is the tongue. Tongue is a freely movable muscular organ attached at the posterior end. Okay. So it has taste buds which helps in tasting the food. So the digestion starts in the oral cavity. So after that, there are several phases in the digestion, which is called as the phases of digestion. So it is ingestion, movement, mechanical and chemical digestion, absorption, and also elimination. So these are the several steps that is involved in the process of successfully digesting the food and successfully absorbing the various minerals, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, energy particles that is present in the food, and finally excreting the unwanted things out of our system. So the phase of digestion takes place in the same order, it does not change, and it remains same for most of the animals. Okay, so first one is mechanical and chemical digestion. So the mechanical digestion, as we seen in earlier, so it is done physically in the oral cavity. So first we hew the food, we tear it, we grind it, we mash it, and we mix it with the salivary glands or the saliva, so that the food can be easily ingested into our body. So after that, chemical digestion. So the various enzymes produced by pancreas, liver, gallbladder, bile. So these enzymes, they helped in the chemical digestion of the food. So it helps in the digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, and also lipids. As carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids are macromolecules, they have to be broken down into simple substances. For example, carbohydrate will be broken down into glucose, fructose, and proteins will be broken down into amino acids, and then at last the lipid will be broken down and it will be stored as fat. And lipid also gives the body energy. So like that they have to be separated chemically. So next one, the whole digestive system, it starts with the mouth, then pharynx, then esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and rectum, and additionally the accessory organs which produce the enzymes that helps in the chemical digestion of the food. So the completely this is called as the gastrointestinal tract. Okay, so the any problem in this gastrointestinal tract leads to diseases. For example, acidity, indigestion. So all these things happens because of constipation, vomiting. So then jaundice, liver cirrhosis, then gallstones, appendicitis, hernia, diarrhea, peptic ulcer, obesity. So these are all the defects will happen if any of these organs malfunctions. Okay, so the gastrointestinal tract must function intact. Okay, so next one is that we will see the mouth, how it particularly involves in the mechanical digestion. So it starts with the heat. The heat mechanically break down food into small pieces. Yes, we can see that molar, premolar, incisors, canines. So all these things they helps in successfully breaking down the large food particles into small pieces. Or else if we swallow the food entirely, what will happen? Our respiratory tract or food pipe will get hooked and there will be difficulty in breathing. Sometimes death may also occur. So heat is very important. So that's why our parents say chew your food good. Only then the digestion will be easier. Our parents they used to say, so chew your food well, good and well before swallowing. So next one is tongue. Tongue mixes food with saliva and it contains amylase, an enzyme which helps in the breakdown of the starch. Next one is esophagus. So the esophagus is also known as 20 centimeter long and it is also called as a food pipe. So they secrete mucus moving food from the throat to the stomach using a muscle movement called as peristalsis. So the esophagus is a thin long muscular tube concerned with the conduction of the food to a J-shaped stomach passing through the neck, thorax and diaphragm. The gastroesophageal sphincter, it is a muscle which regulates the opening of esophagus into the stomach. So if this sphincter does not contract properly during turning action of the stomach, the gastric juice with acid may flow back into the esophagus and may cause heartburn. So we call it as acidity. Okay, so through the esophagus the food enters, and if there is any malfunction, means from the stomach the acid may come out, and when it reaches the food pipe it starts to burn the food pipe. We feel it as acidity. So by having something base we can neutralize the acid and we may find relief from the acidity. So the stomach is a J-shaped muscular bag that stores the food and breaks it down into tiny pieces. So it mixes food with gastric juices that contain enzymes to break down protein and lipids. And the hydrochloric acid in the stomach kills bacteria, and the food found in the stomach is called as the chyme. The stomach functions as a temporary storage organ for food, and it is located in the upper left portion of the abdominal cavity. It consists of three parts: a cardiac portion and a pyloric portion that opens into the duodenum. The opening of the stomach into the duodenum is guarded by pyloric sphincter. It periodically allows partially digested food to enter the duodenum. From the stomach, the food then enters into the small intestine. So at that time, the food will be partially digested. So in the intestine is divided into small intestine and large intestine, and the small intestine is the place where most of the digestion and absorption takes place. So the small intestine assists in the final digestion and absorption of food. It is the longest part of the alimentary canal, and it has three regions: a U-shaped duodenum which is 25 centimeter long, a long coiled middle portion jejunum 2.4 meter long, and a highly coiled ileum which is 3.5 meter long. The wall of the duodenum has Brunner's gland which secrete mucus and enzymes. So the ileum is the longest part of the small intestine and opens into the cecum of the large intestine. The ileal mucosa has numerous vascular projections called villi, which are involved in the process of absorption, and the cells lining the villi produce numerous microscopic projections called microvilli, so giving a brush border appearance that increases the surface area enormously. So the small intestine are roughly 7 meters long. The lining of the intestinal walls has finger-like projections called villi to increase the surface area. You can see in the above diagram. So the villi are covered in microvilli, which further increases the area for absorption. So along with the villi, the ileal mucosa also contain mucus secreting goblet cells and lymphoid tissue known as Peyer's patch, which produce lymphocytes. The wall of the small intestine bears crypts between the base of villi called crypts of Lieberkühn. So the villi plays the very important role in the absorption of the energy and the nutrients. So these villi are the functional part of the small intestine, and the small intestine is the place where most of the absorption takes place. So here what happens means the villi will absorb all the nutrients like carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, amino acids, microminerals, macrominerals, even water, everything that is needed, and it gives to the blood capillaries. So from the blood capillaries what will happen, the energy giving carbohydrate, proteins, so everything will go and reach each and every single cell of our body through the circulatory system. So where the blood is the connective tissue, so it helps in the distribution of the energy, distribution of the carbohydrates, proteins and everything to each and every cell. So the blood plays the main part, that's why it is called as the circulatory system, and it also gives the oxygen to all the cells. So using that oxygen they can get the energy from the glucose which we got from our food with the help of the digestive system. So that is the way how the microvilli helps us. So the microvilli is the functional part of the small intestine and which does the majority of the function, like absorbing the various minerals which is needed for our body. So you can see in the above diagram, so you can, the villi are in finger like projections, so inward they are supplied with the blood capillaries. Okay, so the main function of the small intestine is that nutrients from the food pass into the bloodstream through the walls of the small intestine. So as I said earlier, it absorbs 80% of the ingested water. So whatever water you drink, the small intestine absorbs 80% of the water. It absorbs the vitamins, it absorbs the minerals, it absorbs the carbohydrates, it also absorbs proteins and lipids, and it secretes the digestive enzymes. So these digestive enzymes helps in the completion of the digestion in the small intestine. The food generally remains in the stomach for 4 to 5 hours. Okay, after that the gastric juice, that means in the stomach, HCl and also enzymes will be there. So it will start the digestion inside the stomach. So the HCl will convert the protein what you have eaten into proteoses and peptones, and HCl also provides the acidic medium which is optimum for pepsin, kills bacteria and other harmful organisms and avoids putrefaction. After the stomach and the intestine, the undigested food passes through the large intestine. So the large intestine is about 1.5 meters long. It absorbs nutrients left behind by the small intestines. The end of the large intestine is the rectum, short-term storage which holds feces before it is expelled to the anum. The large intestine consists of cecum, colon and rectum. The cecum is a small blind pouch-like structure that opens into the colon, and it possesses a narrow finger-like tubular projection called a vermiform appendix. So the both cecum and vermiform appendix are large in herbivorous animals and acts as an important site for cellulose digestion with the help of symbiotic bacteria. The colon is divided into 4 regions: an ascending, a transverse, a descending part and a sigmoid colon. Okay, the rectum, so the last one is the rectum. The rectum opens out through the anus. The anus is guarded by 2 anal sphincter muscles. The anal mucosa is folded into several vertical folds and contains arteries and veins called anal columns. The anal columns may get enlarged and cause piles and hemorrhoids. So do you know that the large intestine helps in digestion of the undigested food which is left behind by the small intestine. So it is the last place where the digestion and the absorption takes place. So here the digestion takes place through bacterial digestion, and the fermentation of carbohydrates also takes place here. And also it absorbs the additional water and it concentrates the waste, and the waste pile up in the rectum. Finally it gets dispersed or excreted through the anus. Do you know that the large intestine, the most of the bacteria living in the digestive tract can be found in the large intestine, and this is where the digestive process comes to an end. One fact is that there are more than 100 trillion bacteria in our body, and most of them they live in the large intestine. The digestive tract is home to a natural balance of good, bad, and neutral bacteria. Do you know, kids? Good bacteria are also called probiotics. It supports overall digestive and immune health. So next one we will see about the accessory organs, or they are called as the glands. They are not the path of ingested food but play a critical role in digestion. It includes liver, gallbladder, and also pancreas. So the liver, it secretes bile. Bile helps the small intestine by breaking down fats, making them easier to absorb. Gallbladder stores bile secretion. Do you know the liver is also an important detoxification organ? It helps to filter and eliminate harmful toxins from our body. Do you know the liver, the largest gland in our body, is situated on the upper right side of the abdominal cavity, just below the diaphragm. So it is below the chest on the upper right hand side. The liver consists of two major left and right lobes and two minor lobes. These lobes are connected with diaphragm. Each lobe has many hepatic lobules. So these are the functional unit of the liver. So the liver directly affects digestion by producing bile, but the bile juice aids in the digestion of fat, and it also filters out toxins and waste including drug, alcohol, and poison. Okay, so here you can see that, so as it is processing drugs, alcohol, and poisons, the liver has a high power of regeneration, and the liver secretion can be replaced by, the liver cells are replaced by new ones every 3 to 4 weeks. Apart from bile secretion, the liver also performs several functions. It destroys aging and defective blood cells, stores glucose, stores fat soluble vitamins and iron, detoxifies ionic substances, and it involves in the synthesis of non-essential amino acids and urea. The urea can be excreted through the excretory system, so it is unwanted. And the next one is the gallbladder. So the gallbladder stores bile from the liver and it releases into the small intestine. The fatty diets can cause the formation of the gallstones, which causes the pain. The gallbladder stores the bile, and the bile juice consists of bile pigments. So it is of two things, bilirubin and biliverdin. They help in the breakdown products of hemoglobin of dead RBCs, bile salts, cholesterol, and phospholipids, but has no enzymes. Bile helps in emulsification of fats. Bile salts reduce surface tension of fat droplets and break down into small globules. Bile also activates lipase to digestion of lipids. So generally the bile juice helps in the digestion of lipids, fats, and the oil. So it is of a very, very important one. So the gallbladder helps in the storage of the bile juice, and it pours its content into the small intestine where the breaking down of the fat successfully happens. Second, now we will see about the pancreas. So the pancreas are the second largest gland in the digestive system, which is a yellow colored compound elongated organ consisting of exocrine and endocrine cells. So they are the alpha and beta cells. We know that they helps in the production of insulin. It is situated between the limbs of the U-shaped duodenum. The exocrine portion of the pancreas secretes pancreatic juice containing enzymes such as pancreatic amylase, trypsin, and pancreatic lipase, and the endocrine part called islet of Langerhans secrete hormones such as insulin and glucagon. The pancreatic duct directly opens into the duodenum, and these pancreatic juices helps in the digestion. As the pancreatic juice contains enzymes such as trypsinogen, hemotrypsinogen, carboxypeptidases, pancreatic amylase, pancreatic lipase, and nucleases. They help in digesting major things of the food we eat. So it helps in digestion of carbohydrates. So it does a very important role in processing the food, and it also helps in maintains the sugar level of our body. So we came to the final part. In the picture you can see the at what pH the digestive system must be there. For example, digestion starts from the mouth. The mouth is neutral in pH. Then it comes to stomach where HCl is present, therefore it is acidic in nature. Third one is small intestine where the pH should be basic or neutral. I hope you understood this video. If you have any doubt means go through the video from the beginning. If you want to look at any picture means kindly zoom it and see. And if you have any more doubts means you can call to my number. So with this related to the topic, every week neat questions will be sent. Try to answer that. The answers you send it to my number. The number and the neat questions will be posted along the video. I hope you enjoy this first session of ours. Once again I welcome you to the biology group. I hope you will having a wonderful year. This is Sharif signing off.